I was not worried about you and Danger Wife until I saw the tweet that said 3 17-year-olds were going to be crashing in your hotel room in Las Vegas.
Yes.
That
I've since deleted that tweet, by the way.
that is the moment that I became worried.
And yeah. I also tried to bring people back to the hotel room, and when we got there, everyone was sleeping, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, we don't get to hang out with the jailbait." Yeah. Well, while I was in Las Vegas, Arne's cousin's daughter, who I guess is technically her cousin as well, was wanted to go to a concert, which her mom said, you can go to the concert, I just don't want you driving home from Las Vegas because it's like a 2-hour drive through the mountains, like through the middle of nowhere. So she asked Arne if she could crash with us, and we agreed, and so that's what that was all about.
So
it wasn't nearly as debaucherous as it sounded.
Because I thought, okay, number one, they're not 17. Number two, they're going to, at best, rob Pete and Danger Wife of their laptop and handheld video game devices, at best. And I'm thinking, at worst, nobody would ever hear from either of you again.
See, I got tweets in the other direction asking where I stored the bodies and stuff like that. So, yeah, no, it was just a family member and 2 friends who went to go see some band in Las Vegas and needed a place to crash. And that hotel room was nicer than my apartment. And I think bigger also, so it was fine.
So I have a million questions, so let's start at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You went to the PlayStation Experience, you and Arne.
Yes. Because of Sony. When I heard about it, I was like, I don't know, like a combination of like sort of anxiety and like money. And then I'm an MVP. I'm still not entirely sure what that means. But we get to do cool stuff sometimes. Like I just randomly get emails. It's like, hey, MVPs, here's a cool thing you can do. But this was like way above and beyond. It was like MVPs, like if we're contacting you, like you're close enough that we'll fly you in. We'll put you up in a hotel room for the weekend, and we'll pay for your ticket. And I was like, holy crap, So I wrote back to the guy. I was like, well, I don't need an airplane. I'm only 2 hours away. I was like, but we don't want to drive back and forth every day, especially because I knew anxiety-wise to get over that I was going to be drinking, So that would have been a really bad idea. And the guy was like, yeah, totally. He's like, well, I'll get you 2 tickets to the show and a hotel room for the whole weekend. And like I couldn't believe it. It was like so unbelievably generous. And then when we got there, like I'm thinking in my head like, oh, this place is like it's going to be a dump. It's going to be like halfway across the city. It's actually in the building that the place was at, and the cheapest room is like $550 a night. And it looked that nice. It was ridiculous how nice this hotel was.
Yeah, I stay in hotels regularly. And the nicest hotels I stay in are always in Las Vegas, every time. Like you, generally speaking, or no, not generally, all the time, those hotel rooms are paid for either my employer or by the company that I'm visiting.
Right.
So that's nice because Lord knows I couldn't afford to do that on my own.
Right.
But I guess the main question is, how does it feel to have sold your soul?
Yeah, like I thought about that quite a bit, but like one of the things that's changed, I feel like over the year for me, because it's been a weird year, just like a lot of stuff happening, like between like just in the video game realm, like my private life is something completely different, which has also been insane. But like just in video game world, like getting banned from GAF, and then like the funding for the website dying at that point, and then the struggle of getting the website up and like all this stuff. And for the longest time, I was like what Gamergate, or the more pure people in Gamergate say Gamergate is, like this whole like ethics in journalism, and like I'm gonna take video games super seriously. And after the way like all of this stuff has played out, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I'm sick of being mad at video games. I'm sick of being mad at video game journalists. I'm sick of Xbox people fighting with PlayStation people. Like I'm sick of just like, oh, this game's broken, that game's broken. There's a million problems in this industry right now, but this is my hobby, and I sort of through all of this adversity realized like I want games to be fun. That's what that's what I'm in this for, And like I didn't go to PSX as a journalist. I went there as a fan, and Sony paid for it and everything, and they wanted me to have a good time, and I had a good time, and I don't feel bad about that. It's fun to have fun, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. It's not like I'm going to be like, okay, they paid for it, but now I'm going to be like super serious, like, here, like Sony's awesome because of blah blah blah. Like, no, clearly they wined and dined me, and it worked.
It's a nice way to live, just looking around at different things and saying, you know what, I am going to enjoy this book because it's pure entertainment. I know it's ridiculous, and I don't care. Or
right.
I'm going to play this game, and I don't care about its backstory or its studio or its developer. I'm just going to play it. Or I'm going to watch this movie, and it's an explosion movie, and it's ridiculous, but it's going to be fun. It's a nice way to live.
It is. It's. I mean, to me, you end up, having more fun. Like I know that I've done this with sports games in the past, where I used to be really obsessed with sliders. It's like the more and more intense you get about something, the less fun you have with it. And then like when you just like get a game, like, okay, I'm getting FIFA, I'm putting it on professional this year, and I'm just gonna deal with it. And I can't score goals, and I kind of want to tweak things and whatever, but no, like you just do it and you have fun and you figure it out and you just play, and it's like, oh wow, like just experiencing it was way better than like this whole sort of like I need to get in depth with everything, like, and I feel like this is happening on a more macro level for me with video games. Like I made it too much of like, this is my job, this is serious, we have to move the art form forward, to now I just want to sit down and play a game and enjoy it, like I understand why people are upset with Destiny's lack of story, and I understand why people are upset with Drive Club's server issues, and they bothered me as well. But at the same time, I can't sit here and tell you that like I think Drive Club's a bad game, because I have fun every time I play it. And like, am I supposed to feel bad about that? I don't think so. But well, certain people want you to feel bad about that.
I'm with you on everything except Drive Club. You are supposed to feel bad about that. Okay. Everything else, I'm with you. We're actually going to talk about that in a little while. But I want to stay on the PlayStation experience for a little bit. A bunch of questions I want to ask you, sort of more philosophical than anything. But let's just start with when you got there, what happened? Because I looking at your tweets, evidently it was not exactly the best organized when you arrived. So tell me what happens when you get there, and give me the rundown as your first few hours there.
Yeah, it was. Everything through the keynote was not organized well at all. We got there the night before. Like they had a booth right near where you check in, so I went over there, and they're like, yeah, we can give you your pass here, but your wife has to go to this other place that was like a half-mile walk through like 90 buildings. And we got her pass, and we went upstairs. And then the next morning, there was like 5 lines, and when I say lines, I'm not talking about like 20 people, like thousands of people going in different directions. Everyone going, what's this line for? Because there was a lot of people who showed up that morning that didn't have the bracelet, like we got the night before. So like 3 of those lines were to different ticket counters to change your ticket into a bracelet, and then 2 of those lines were to get into the thing, and they didn't even have people directing us. It ended up, we stood in line for about an hour, and a lot of people went at like 5 o'clock in the morning, which is insane to me. But but we stood in line for an hour, and right near the end of the hour, one person walked by and was like, "This line's for this line's for this," and we happened to be in the right line. Like the people who we asked, they're like, "We think this is the one for bracelets," and we're like, "Okay, good." But then like we saw people who had bracelets in another line, and the person was like, "This is if you need bracelets," and so then they had to go to the back of our line. Like it was just it was a mess on that level.
So after the endless, confused, unwashed masses in various lines, I assume you got into the keynote, and was that the first time you'd ever been at something like that? How is that in person versus watching it on a stream?
Really loud. Really like unbearably loud. Like I grew up, like my teenage years were spent watching like East Coast hardcore bands, West Coast punk bands, death metal bands. None of them were half as loud as this this thing was. It was insane. But it was really cool also, like it wasn't like a theater that went up. It was pretty much a room that was just like, it was like a gymnasium times a trillion. Like it was just this huge empty room, and it just had chairs. I mean, it wasn't empty then, but typically I think it would be empty. And it just had chairs, and so we were pretty much like dead center. And so we could see the stage okay. We're pretty far away from it. Like the people like came out there like this big, and but they also had a bunch of screens going back that were huge, and there was one right near us. So like when we needed to see something up close, we just turned our head to the right. So that was good. And it was like being part of the crowd and stuff. Like it was neat. I mean, the people is something that I want to talk about in general as well, which I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, it was just like, they would announce a game, and like like people were having the same reaction as me. I love this. I always call them Suikoden. I think it's pronounced Suikoden. I don't even know. I always love those games, so when they announced that, like, I just couldn't contain myself. I was like, yeah, and clapping, and I looked around, and I wasn't alone. There was a lot of other people doing that, and it was just like, oh, like, it was this level of camaraderie, of like, we're all really excited about this same thing together, which it would have been embarrassing if I was, like, the only person. Like, everyone else was like, that game sucks. And I'm like, oh. All the cameras,
right, I'm sorry.
The cameras all turn at me. This is the one guy happy. But so it was cool though. It was other than the volume, it was really neat being on the show floor, and it was like, and the audience adds to it. I mean, when they opened the show and they showed the little montage, and then the screen went black and it said Sony Computer Entertainment, and then it said Naughty Dog. And we knew it was Uncharted 4, and everyone was just like, yeah! Like, I felt that way more in the audience than I ever have watching that type of thing on the screen. Like, it was like putting adrenaline in me. I was like, oh my god, like, Uncharted 4, this is going to be crazy, and it was. It was an amazing trailer. Or gameplay session, rather. But, yeah, so it was really, really neat being on the floor.
So I'm going to go right to a tweet because you mentioned Uncharted 4 and Naughty Dog, and our good friend Nicholas West says Uncharted 4 has clearly evolved because of The Last of Us. Is that really a good thing? Does Uncharted 4 run the risk of feeling too intense? What is Nick on to something with that based upon what you have seen from Uncharted 4?
No, I would say no, which I just said twice already, so 3 no's. I think the story is going to be a little bit heavier, a little bit darker. But that gameplay session was fun in a way that The Last of Us never is. I mean, like you're like when Nate was falling, like the guy threw the grenade up, and Nate like was run and jumped and put the thing in the tree and then fell down on the guy, and it was like, I mean, it was like over the top, like, you know, sort of Indiana Jones type fun action, which The Last of Us never did. Like none of the, you know, gameplay violence, you know, shooting, like it was never like, let's have fun with the zombies, and you know, like, so I'm not worried about, like, gameplay wise. It looked tighter than previous Uncharted's, and it looked like just more refined and more fun. Is the story gonna be darker with the Uncharted guys now in the lead, and Amy now working over with the guys making a Star Wars game? It probably will be, but I don't. It's not gonna be The Last of Us dark, and they haven't changed the gameplay to be like, you know, at least to me, it didn't feel like as oppressive or as intensely violent as The Last of Us was. I mean, Nate was shooting people and killing them, but like The Last of Us, like you put like a board with a knife into things' heads, and you know, blood squirts out. Like, you know, that wasn't happening in Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4 is always bright, and The Last of Us is always dark.
Yeah.
Like whenever I think of both of those franchises, I always think of dark, dank, and wet. When The Last of Us, whether it's in the subways or in those tunnels, you know,
yeah, this was a tropical island. You're climbing up cliffs and stuff. Like, I mean, like all of that stuff is fun. You know, I mean, it's weird to say like, okay, you're shooting and killing people and that's fun, but I mean, that's what video games are in a lot of ways, or in most ways. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely much more lighthearted. I think. Just gameplay wise, it's much more lighthearted.
I mean, you and all of the Uncharted fans were already eagerly anticipating Uncharted 4. Obviously,
yes.
You know, 1 and 2 are among the best games of recent years. There's a lot of debate around 3.
Yeah, I'm one of the people that love 3 as well. Okay. But yeah, I know that puts me in a minority, or maybe a silent majority.
So was your exposure to Uncharted 4 just more of an affirmation of what you were hoping and expecting, or was it even more than that? Like
it was better.
Really?
I was expecting typical Uncharted, you know, like, well, I assumed they were going to do a set piece moment, which are always awesome, but like we've seen them now for 2 games in a row. There's a couple kind of set pieces in the first one, but like 2 really like invented the Uncharted set piece, and 3 had a bunch as well. And this wasn't that. And when Uncharted isn't that, it's typically run into an area that gets wider, there's waist-high cover all over the place, and then the back of the room fills up with guys shooting at you, and they also have waist-high cover. And it becomes like almost this arena shooter at this point, which is fine, and it's always been, you know, fun enough, but like it's a formula that was getting tired, I felt like. And there wasn't 1 second of that in this. Like, this was all about sort of verticality, and you know, there was a lot more stealth elements to it as well. It looks like the melee combat has been fleshed out better, and there was just more environmental interaction and stuff. So there was never the let's get to the arena with the waist high cover and hide behind it and then pop up, shoot a guy, duck down, reload, pop up, shoot a guy, duck down, reload, which is kind of what Uncharted always defaulted to in the previous games.
Okay, so what happens after that? What next sticks out in your mind during the keynote? Any particular announcement or something you unexpected, something expected?
Well, it would have been Street Fighter V if that didn't break on GAF the day before. But because I am a Street Fighter fan, and that like, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like the fact that it's exclusive to the PlayStation isn't exciting to me because it was going to be on the PlayStation either way. It's like it's just not on the Xbox. Though it sounds like Capcom's in such financial trouble that the game might not have existed, so maybe it's not that. I don't know. Who knows? But I don't know what. There were a bunch of smaller games that stood out to me, and they were coming so quickly that I couldn't I don't remember the names of them, but like when I see them in the future visually, I'd be like, oh yeah, that game. I actually played a bunch of them too, and I can't remember the names of them. I have an awful memory in that way. I guess on the downside, the Final Fantasy VII troll was pretty awful, which I don't think was a troll. I think Square Enix is just that out of touch, and yeah, I don't know. Like it wasn't to me. It wasn't a show with megatons, quote unquote. And nor did I really want it to be, because all we talk about is how all of these AAA games, like whether it's Watch Dogs or Assassin's Creed or the Call of Duty or whatever, like how they've just become sort of like whitewashed and just generic, and it's like, and people want like these huge announcements like, oh, we're going to $500 million franchise, we're going to put in the, and like I like Destiny, I love Destiny, but a lot of people who are asking for these types of games hate Destiny as well, and it's like, well, you don't like any of these games, why are you why are you asking for them? Like, it was just a parade of game after game after game after game where I was like, want that, want that, want that, want that. I was not sold on the order before that show. After seeing it during the experience, I was more interested than after seeing it on the show floor. I was like, okay, day one, like, well, assuming I have money day one, but so that and seeing Bloodborne in person was probably, I mean, Bloodborne was my game of the show. I don't know if that was going to be a question later, but that was probably a highlight for me as well. But it wasn't a surprise. We know Bloodborne's coming. It was just really, well, I guess it was a surprise knowing that there's going to be a dungeon that is procedurally generated, because that will add a ton of replay value. So that that little bit of information was just like, oh wow, like this just made a game that I already want like even better.
What is it about Bloodborne? Because you and Arne were both gushing about it. I mean, I know you're fans of the Souls franchise. I know you're fans of the creative director, but what
Right.
was it about it that had both of you swooning?
Well, it's I don't know. It's almost like what I pictured Castlevania being when I was a kid. But now it's happened, like it's in real life, and it's not even, I mean, most of it, like I don't know if any of it's even in the castle, but it has that sort of dreary, like it's like feels like it takes place like 200 or 300 years ago instead of like 1,000+ years ago, like the Soul series does. Like there's actually guns, and I don't know. I really, really like the setting of it. That's what sold me on it at first. It was like, okay, it's a new setting. But then after seeing it and then playing it, it's a lot more actiony than the previous Souls games, or how the previous Souls games could be played. I always played with really agile classes. I liked like getting out of the way of being hit instead of blocking and then counterattacking. And there is no shield. Like you have like a gun in one hand and whatever weapon in the other. And the gun does a little bit of damage, but it's mostly a stagger. So it's a lot sort of like more faster moving, and but it still has that level of exactness and like with timing that the Soul series always had. So it feels really good when like an enemy's like in an attack, like are starting an attack, and you hit them with the gun for the stagger, and then you go in and you hit them, and then they're about to counter, and you jump back out of the way, and they miss, and then you hit them, and it's a lot more bloody than the Souls games were. Like, so you hit them with your sword, and it's just like just gross blood awesomeness. And like there was a point in the demo that I played where there was like 10, 12 guys on the screen at once, which never happens, or very, very, very rarely happens in the Souls games. So it was a different experience, and a welcome one. Now, it's not to say like I hope they keep making like that this new team, even though I didn't like Dark Souls 2 as much as Dark Souls 1. I hope there's a Dark Souls 3. I hope they keep going in that direction as well. But I like that Miyazaki is taking, like his talents in this other direction. No Miami joke there.
Well, one thing that was evident is that the Vita is continuing to get love and support, not only from the keynote, but
so good.
All reports the show floor as well.
Yeah.
Like if you look at titles that are coming to the Vita, whether they're just on the Vita or also crossplay, you got Geometry Wars 3, you've got Super Time Force, you've got the Banner Saga, Broken Age, Grim Fandango,
Severed,
which
was awesome.
Drinkbox Studios, who's I fell in love with Mutant Blob's Attack. I still play that sometimes. Guacamelee I like, but it was too hard for me to get all the way through.
It got tough.
Did you play Severed, by the way?
I did, yeah.
Talk to me. What is it? And
it's impossible. It's impossible to describe. There's been a couple people who have asked me about it.
Moving on.
Because people love Drinkbox.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. Like any way that I explain it, it's going to sound really boring, but it's not. But it's basically like it's in first person. But it's kind of like an old school PC game where you just sort of move up, and then you move up, and you attack people by doing stuff like this. But it's kind of puzzles, and there's also adventure game elements like old PC games. But it's really the mood that they set and the way that everything looks. I mean, their art direction has always been amazing. Whether it's Mutant Blob's Attack with the 1950s science thing, which I love so much that that's the entire site design for Dodd Scientifics. Or the Mexican-inspired Guacamelee stuff, and this. Just also, it sucked me in. I mean, I'm on a show floor with a Vita in my hands, and I'm just into this game. It really just sucked me in right away. So that's really all I can say. That sounds good, because if I describe it, you're going to be like, that sounds like the most boring thing ever.
When is that coming out? Have they announced it?
No, I don't think there's a date for it.
Okay. Yeah, I love Drinkbox. I've actually visited the studio. I tried to do a feature, and I still have an interview with them about Mutant Blob's Attack when they were in the middle of building Guacamelee, which was great.
Right.
So yeah, and some people like to make fun of the Vita, and say, oh, now it's just a pure port machine, and I'm like, hey, I'm totally cool with that. I am 1,000% cool with that, because as you and I have discussed before, it is by far my preferred way to play any of those kinds of games. Mm-hmm. It's just, to me, the perfect delivery platform for those kinds of games.
Right.
Even Shovel Knight, which I played quite a bit of on the 3DS and did not enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I think it will work better on the Vita. I
hope so.
It will be tighter.
Well, I worry about the controls, though, because my experience has been that the 3DS controls are tighter than the Vita controls, but,
Really? I felt the opposite, but it may have just been my 3DS.
I just Shovel Knight. I respect. I appreciate what they tried to do. It was just, it got to a point where it was too punishing to me.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm not terrible at games. I'm not good at games, but I'm not terrible at games. And that game made me feel like I was terrible at games, and that's I didn't appreciate
It's
it.
hard. I have it on the PC, and a faithful listener, Mr. Shismile, gifted me it. So thank you, Mr. Shismile. And I've had it for a while, and I keep trying to go back to it, and I love it, but yeah, like after I die like 3 or 4 times on the same part, and the checkpoint is way back, I'm just like, oh God. You know?
Yeah, and that exact exasperated sigh. I'm like, you know what? I have too many other things that I can play that don't make me feel like that. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but it's a good get for the Vita, and
yes,
there was a lot of stuff for the Vita, and like the whole cross-buy thing makes those games so much more attractive too, you know, because indie game prices are rising, which is probably a good thing for the industry, but it sucks for us. And having, you know, like being like, oh, why is this game 15 when like 2 or 3 years ago it would be 10, but now it's 15, and if it's cross-buy, then you're like, okay, that's fine.
Well, you know, again, unless it's a special situation, I tend to just let those things stay out there until it comes to PS Plus. I mean,
right.
Or a sale.
I mean, I think that's why indie game prices are rising, actually, is because a lot of people do wait for sales. So it's like, we're going to get our hardcore fans to pay us a lot of money at first, and then 2-3 months down the road, everyone else who wanted it but thought it was too expensive, now it will be cheaper for them.
I mean, it's not an indie game, but a great example of that is right before the show started, our good friend Chris Johnston from the Player One podcast tweeted that Valiant Hearts purchased, thanks PSN sale, and it said CC Rich Grisham, and I'm like, you'll love it. It's a wonderful game, one of my favorite games this year, and if you can get it on sale, even better. I mean, I think it's worth the $15 I think that it was, but it's a perfect example of that kind of thing. Even though I know it's not an indie game, it's Ubisoft, but it might as well be an indie game because everything about it screams indie.
Yeah. When I saw that, I almost tweeted like, if you don't buy this at this price, Rich Grisham will hunt you down and kill you.
It's true. Very true.
When I saw NBA Live for $30, I was like, why do I have to be poor right now? I playing it on SharePlay with you, I'm like, $30 is an okay price for that game.
And NBA Live is better when playing against another person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unlike NBA 2K15, which I think the more I play it, the deeper I get into it, the more I enjoy playing against the computer.
Right.
The more I play NBA,
which is why we're starting a league.
That's right. Well, I mean, I'm also fascinated to see how it will be to play against you and Mike and TJ and Brian. But you know, NBA Live, you know, after 30 to 40 to 50 games, it's much more suited to playing against somebody.
That's the thing is like, I don't have $30 to spend on it right now, but if I did, I think I would still sort of take pause with like, I need to send Rich an email and see if I, you know, like how many games we're gonna play together, because like I'm not gonna be like, I want to play a single player basketball game right now. Which one am I going to pick? I'm gonna pick 2K every time.
Every time.
Know? It was funny that EA had a bunch of games there. The one they were showing off the most was Battlefield Hardline.
Yeah.
Which actually looks, gameplay wise, I mean, we can get into, I mean, there's a lot with that, like cops and robbers, and like especially with everything our country is going through right now.
Yep.
It's definitely not timed very well at all, and like, but gameplay wise, it has tightened up quite a bit since the alpha. So people who are interested in it will be happy to hear that. But it's funny, like, so the EA thing, like they had that, and they had a whole bunch of Madden set up, like, and they were all just like 2 minutes, like sort of like the Madden championships, like you said,
really?
Play, dude, like 2 minute things. And then they had one kiosk with NBA Live, and every time I looked at it, there was no one playing it. Like, well, except for one time, this dude walked up to it, and then like he ran 3 feet, and then just paused it and walked away. And I was like, really? You like walking 3 feet? You got bored?
Unfortunately, that seems to be the attitude of most consumers towards that game.
Yeah, it was cracking me up. Like I felt bad too because I want them to do well, and I want that series to get better, and I want them to push 2K, and I want 2K to push them. But yeah, it's tanking, and it was there was lines for everything on the show floor except for NBA Live.
So, what else did you play that you remember? Like, what stands out that you sat down and you played?
Well, like I said before, Bloodborne, obviously. I didn't play The Order because there was a long line and it barely moved. And I was like, why is that? So then I decided to just go watch it. And it was because they had 2 demos there. One was 30 minutes and one was 45 minutes. And I'm not a stand-in-line guy, and especially waiting for, a 30-minute demo to end. So I was just watching over people's shoulders, which I felt like you can get a pretty good feel for a game watching over someone's shoulder, and I was really, really impressed with it. The gameplay looked fun. Everyone who was playing it was walking away being like, this is awesome. Like, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. People were really, really happy with it. So watching that was really big. The most fun Arne and I had is, and this is funny because the game's out, but it was one of the kiosks that was open because of the fact that the game is out. We played Little Big Planet 3 together, and we were just laughing hysterically the entire time. And she was like, why don't we own this yet? And I was like, because we're freaking poor.
Because you haven't sold enough couches. Get on it.
So, yeah, we need to get our hands on a copy of Little Big Planet 3, something fierce. And a second controller. I mean, I only own one controller at this point, too. Though maybe the Vita would work as a second. But, yeah, so that's a pretty boring answer to say, like, oh, this game that came out, But that was a lot of fun.
Well,
for me, like a standout for me was Hotline Miami 2 on the Vita. Was awesome.
Well, you especially love that first game. I know that.
Yeah, I love the first game. The second game isn't really that much different, but just the way they had it set up, like you had these huge headphones on, and the soundtrack in that game, like in the first one was amazing, and this one sounded even better. And it was another game that, like, again, I was just like playing a Vita game in the middle of 10,000 people and just sucked into the world of it and stuff. And so that definitely stood out to me. I'm trying to think. There was Arne played Grim Fandango for a long time. She seemed to get really sucked into it, but she said it was kind of slow moving because it's a remake of an older game, and older games in general were slow moving. I don't know. I feel like I did a lot more watching over people's shoulders than playing because like I said, I'm not a stand-in-line guy. I didn't do the virtual reality thing because I'd messed up my neck.
I'm down on virtual reality right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people who were doing it, like, all were, like, walking away being like, wow, that was the craziest thing I ever saw. But at the same time, it was like the line was longer for The Order than it was for the entire virtual reality booth. So, like, I don't think, like, the market is as huge as people think it is.
Yeah, and when I say I'm down, it's not that I'm down on it. I'm just, the more I think about what you have to do, from the device and putting on your head and the amount of time, it's like it just seems like it's, it to me it needs to be a little more Google Glassy kind of a thing where you just sort of put something right here, not a whole thing. And
like, I don't know. If you see a booth of people playing different games, that will only hammer that feeling home because, like, there's a couple games where there's people laying on the floor, because there's like this luge game, and then there's ones where people are sitting in a chair, there's ones where people are standing up, and it's like, as you walk around this booth, you're like, this thing wants me to do a lot of shit.
Yeah, and I don't like doing
it's kind of the same problem that the Kinect had, It's just like, I don't want to do this in games. I want to do this.
Exactly. No, I mean, I didn't think of it that way, but you're absolutely right. And I don't think it's because I'm old. I just think it's because there's a reason we've been playing video games a certain way for a long time. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. But the other thing is, like, I can see virtual reality stuff being fun in short bursts. Like you just said, luge. That sounds like that would be fun for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, they haven't shown anything that would pull you in like a good typical console game would.
But like, I don't know that I would have it in me to play 9 innings of baseball or 3 sets of tennis or certainly like shooting dudes in the face for 30 or 45 minutes. It feels like it would need to be short bursts, and I don't know that I am willing to make the investment in hardware for something. I mean, I'm making a lot of assumptions here.
Right. I mean, but that's all we could do at this point. I mean, like when it comes out, I mean, it may be like the Wii. Like, it doesn't make sense until you have it, and then you're like, oh, I get it. And then, I don't know, then for some people like me, I was like, okay, this is boring now. But, like bowling was really popular with like grandmas everywhere for like 4 years. So it was like...
It'll also be interesting because it's going to come out, in a year or two, and my son will be 8 or 9. It'll be interesting to see whether he's interested in it or not.
Right.
As well.
Yeah, I feel like at this age, I have enough sort of headaches and just like, just stress, just wanting to decompress and and putting a helmet on your head are very opposite things. That's not what I want to do. Like when I put a game on, I sit back like this, put my feet up over here, and then I play like this. And it's just like I want to relax. I don't want this crazy fucking world. But maybe I do.
Maybe we do.
I mean, I was right next to the thing and I didn't play it. So, I mean, like, this is coming from someone who could be informed on the subject and is willfully ignorant. So
I have gotten a demo of the Oculus Rift. I did do that. So I've seen it, and, it was cool. But I felt better when I took the helmet off than when I put it back, when I put it on. I was like, better. So
exactly.
But, anything else? Anything? Well, you said the order. Anything you haven't spoken about that really surprised you in a positive way? You're like, oh wow, I didn't think anything about that, but now that's definitely on my radar.
Not really.
What about the other way? Anything that you were like, oh, this is gonna be good, and then you start like, I'm not so sure about this one anymore.
No, like I said at the beginning, like it could just be the atmosphere and everything, but it was like a whirlwind of just like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. Like, this is fun, this is fun, this is fun, like playing games. But it all happened so quickly, like, at least for me and my old sensors, it was just sensory overload, like where I was just sort of like, I don't even know what's good or bad anymore. Like, I've just had too much information thrown at me at once. But like, I came away from it like knowing that I am going to use my PlayStation 4 and my Vita a lot in 2015 and 2016 because they showed an awful lot that I want to play more of.
Yeah, it's definitely from a guy who I didn't watch the keynote. I don't, me. I'm not a future guy. I'm a what can I play today guy. I mean, It's nice to know what's coming down the line. Don't get me wrong, but I don't. If I can't play it today or in a week or two, I tend to just sort of not pay a whole lot of attention. But it's nice to know that as a Vita owner, the system is going to be supported for the next year and a half.
Especially since it's been so hard to find in stores lately. Like there's been like a real worry of like, is this the end?
Yeah,
and the PlayStation experience made it clear it's not the end.
Yeah, my Vita has been acting a little weird lately too. And
have you used the 2000, the newer model? I never had touched one, even being Mr. Vita. I'd never even saw one or used one until the PlayStation experience. It's so much better than the original one. So much better.
It's a good thing my wife doesn't watch or listen, because today I was doing a little online shopping or online.
It was on sale yesterday.
And I have a lot of credit card points. Because I do a lot of traveling and I charge a lot of stuff on a couple of things, and I was very close to, instead of buying my wife a few things for Christmas, picking myself up a nice Vita bundle. Very, very close.
I used credit card points. Like I didn't even realize I had. I just was like looking at like how much money I owed and wanting to kill myself, and then it was like, you have 11,000 points, and then I looked and Far Cry 4 was there. So I was like, ding! I was like, if this card's going to ruin my life, at least they could give me a Far Cry 4 as well. So, yeah.
But I didn't, but I was thinking about it because I have a feeling my well-worn Vita, it's actually my second Vita. I bought it the day after PAX East 2013 because my day one Vita got cracked and broken at PAX East 2013.
Right.
But my son plays it all the time and was playing Mutant Blob's Attack, and it started behaving badly, and I cleaned the screen and it was okay and then it went crazy again, and I cleaned the screen and charged it up, and it's been okay the last couple of days. But you always know,
right,
when your electronics start to act funny, they don't just magically fix themselves. So
yeah, typically not.
So what else?
I was actually amazed though, because I've always assumed that I would be, like no, back in my day when the 1000, like that's the best one, and they were never could be better. And then I'd use the 2000. I was like, number one, I can't tell that the screen is crappier. I didn't have my Vita with me to compare, but I was like, I cannot tell. Like, this screen is gorgeous. And number two, everything else about it is better. The way it feels, like it fits in your hand better. Everything feels better spaced out. Like the back touch is smaller, so you have more room to sort of wrap your fingers around it without hitting the back touch. Like it's just an improvement in every single way. But Arne thought so too. And we're like, we need new Vitas, but it's like the same thing with Little Big Planet and everything else. It's like, when do we get money? Someday we're gonna get these things.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if I have an opportunity, like if I get some money for Christmas or something, I could see myself, when I'm in a store and there's actually a Vita in front of me that I can purchase, maybe taking the plunge, especially if there's a sale or something, or like using my Best Buy points or something to do that. Well, I could see it. Who did you meet?
I met a lot of people. I met. I don't know if you're friends with him on Twitter or not, but I had met up with a guy who goes by Macewank, which is going to sound silly as I keep talking about Macewank. But him and his friend and Arne and I met up, and we had drinks and drinks and drinks, and then Arne went back to meet up with the 17-year-olds, and then we had drinks, and then we had shots, and it was, we Vegased. We Vegased really hard in Vegas.
Yeah, I seem to recall a little Vegasing.
Yeah.
What that's like.
Yes. We also have Vegased. I cheated on you and Vegased with somebody else.
That's all right. We will reconsummate again at Doddcon 2 this March.
Nice. But yeah, so that was really cool. I met up with Carlos. I think his last name is Macias. I know how it's spelled. I don't know how it's pronounced. he just came up to me. I was looking for Arne, and I was like, like totally frantic. So if you're listening to the show, like it wasn't that I wasn't interested in talking to you. I was anxious and didn't know where to go. And then like Sony wise, I met Gio Corsi, who was super cool. Like he was just walking down the hall and I stopped him, which isn't something that I typically like to do, but at the same time I think if he's, you're a Sony person at a Sony conference, you kind of expect that. It's not like he was hanging out in a restaurant like in private with his wife or whatever, and I just walk up like. So I hope it didn't bother him. I met him. I met somebody from the video team. I met Nick Acordino, who is a producer who's worked on a bunch of different stuff. He's worked on Knack. He's worked on Freedom Wars. He's working on Big Fest, which is coming to the Vita, and I think the PlayStation 4 now. Met him, like him and I have been online friends for a while, so it was cool meeting up with him. We talked for a long time. I met Boogie, and Boogie and his wife Dez, and we hung out for like half an hour, just shooting the shit and stuff. And it was like right in the middle of this hallway, so it was like as we're talking, it was just all these people were like Boogie, and like so like it kept stopping, like, and he was taking pictures with everybody, but he was as awesome or even more awesome than I wanted him to be. And Boogie and I, like, he had me on his Twitch stream once, and him and I have had a couple just Skype conversations with each other. Like, we definitely we have a lot of similarities and a lot of stuff in common. But meeting him, it was just like it was sort of like what meeting you. It was just sort of instantly like, this is my friend, like. So that was really cool. The best thing I did, I think, was I went to the Bloodborne panel, where basically it was the same demo that they showed during PSX, during the keynote, but they spent Miyazaki spent about an hour talking about it and talking about all the different things that they can do and going much more in depth. And there was
love those.
Yeah,
love those.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really, really cool. And there was a Q&A at the end, and I got up and got in line. And then when it got to me, there was like 3 or 4 guys behind me in my line, and there was like 4 or 5 guys in the other line. And they were like, when I got up to the mic, they're like, all right, this is going to be the last question. And I was like, in my head, I am shitting my pants. I'm, like, everyone's in the room. There's like a giant like TV camera and stuff, and I'm like, I just looked around. I'm like, I feel really awful now. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to take your spot. And everyone's like, ha 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 ha. And I was like, oh, that sounded like a joke. Like I was like, but like according to Arne and people that actually came up to me afterwards, they were like, yeah, you seem so calm. And I was like, not calm at all.
You should see me when I'm calm, because boy, am I calm.
Right. I'm asleep, pretty much. So I told Miyazaki, I'm sure I told this story on the show at one point, because it actually happened while I was recording the show, way, way, way back when. Like, Arne and I were dating. She lived in Brooklyn. I was at her apartment in Brooklyn, and I went to go record an episode of the PS Nerds with Rich Johnson and Billy Bill Black. And I came out, and Arne was fighting the boss of 1-1 in Demon Souls, and she went, I think he's weak to fire. And I was like, what? I'm like, all the games, because I had like 300 digital games on my PlayStation 3. Of all the games, she turns on the PlayStation, plays Demon Souls, and gets to the boss of 1-1, and knows what his weakness is. And I was like, and so like I recounted that entire story, and I was like, and within a couple weeks I asked her to marry me. And like in the crowd like cheered, and like they're like, oh, and Arne's face turned red, and Miyazaki like smiled and laughed, and then but his answer was kind of sad in a way too. He's like, I wish that my games would bring me joy like that. But then someone in the crowd was like, will you marry me? So it was like, so I didn't meet him per se, but I got to tell him that he was a major factor in asking Arne to marry me. So that was really cool.
I listened to the Player One podcast today and was struck by something that Chris Johnston said. He said something, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he basically said that the PlayStation experience further, marginalizes the games media, because they basically said, you know what, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to have it be, consumers come in. It's not going to be about the elite. It's just we're going to have panels that are going to talk. And
I didn't see a single person that I recognized from the press, and I whether I like them or not, I know what pretty much everyone looks like.
Yeah.
Like they're like, yeah, like the press was irrelevant.
And it is, I mean, they're chipping away, but to me it's like, well, wow, that's obvious.
It's just like the Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo's doing it, and now Sony's doing it. And I mean, I don't have any idea what it costs Sony to put the show together. I mean,
it couldn't have been cheap.
Las Vegas is a perfect place. Like if there's a place you want to have an event that's got the rooms and the hotels and the convention centers. I mean, I could see, again, assuming that it broke even or was an expense that was expected, I could see them looking at themselves like, why didn't we do this before? And can we go sign a 3-year deal so we can get a 15% discount on everything like now? And it seems like a brilliant move for them to do, and I will be shocked if Microsoft and Sony both don't have their own late 2015 versions of these as a as ultimately 3-4 years from now making E3 not even be a thing anymore, and just each of these companies controlling their own message.
Right. And you know what else was really cool to me? Like this is the thing that stood out to me the most from the show, and I think this is the year that like the only year it really could have stood out to me, because of the fact that in the media, in social media, and if you include message boards and stuff in social media, it has been a tumultuous year for video game players.
Mm-hmm.
There's Gamergate, there's gamers versus the media and gamers versus gamers, and it's the first year of 2 new consoles and everyone hates each other. And at this event, I did not see a single person where I looked at them and thought, that person's being an asshole. Every single person there, that I saw, was cool. Everyone was really nice. I was in line with people who were talking about the Xbox, and they were talking about Sunset Overdrive and how awesome it was. And it wasn't and there weren't people going like, why are you talking about the Xbox? It wasn't Twitter. It wasn't fucking NeoGAF. It was just like they were talking about video games that they liked that happened to be on the Xbox while they're at the PlayStation experience, and no one was pissed off about it. Everyone was just super nice. It was a really wide spanning crowd as well, young and old. There was far more females there than I assumed that there would be. Every race, everything, and everyone just was happy. It's just when I went to go play Bloodborne, the guy who was getting off, he was like, man, have fun, this game's awesome. It's just everyone was just excited and happy, and it was this group of people that were so happy and were so kind, and so the opposite of how the media portrays it, how Gamergate has portrayed it, like, you know, and I'm not picking one side or the other in the Gamergate thing. I just mean the whole clash. You know, it's just like there was no one. I didn't see anyone being sexist. I didn't see anyone, you know, threatening anybody. I didn't see anyone yelling about like this is better than that. Like it was just a bunch of people who were really, really nice. Like everybody was extremely nice.
I love it. That's kind of how it is in the vast majority of people who play games, and it's nice to see it actually.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to a million concerts in my life as well, and the people there were nicer than most concerts, which is weird, you know, because music's much more personal, at least to me. You know, it's like than a video game system. Like a specific video game could be as personal as music, but as like a system, or you know, two systems in the case of this event. But like people just were. Everyone was nice. It was so weird. It was like going to like St. Louis in the middle of Las Vegas. It was just like, hi. I like video games. Me too. Let's be friends.
All right. Want to hit on two things before we get to questions and tweets. First up is Drive Club. Pete, Drive Club is still a broken mess.
It got rebroken.
I went on tonight very excited to try the new dynamic weather that I'm reading about. You're tweeting pictures of lightning. Kotaku is writing how the dynamic weather has changed the game. So this is not me being, I'm not exaggerating. This is exactly the sequence of events that happened for the 25 minutes before I hopped online to do this show. I turned on Drive Club, and I was immediately told that I watched my club level go up like 9 times. I was like, wow, that's cool, right? I went from like level 7 to 15. Sweet. So then I go to my club, and I go to do a club challenge, and I wait for a minute and a half, and it spins, and then the game crashes. I'm like, all right. So then I reboot the game. And I go to I go back to my club, and then I hit the little multiplayer thing, and it says that, you know, a couple of my friends are online, including Greg Seward. So I'm like, oh, I want to race with Greg Seward. So I say join, and it says, all right, you're now in a multiplayer session with Greg Seward. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not in anything. I just see the menus, but it says you're in a multiplayer session. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to get out of this and then it'll bring me in. And like for 2 or 3 minutes, it just said that I was in a multiplayer session and absolutely nothing was happening. I'm like, all right, I don't know what that's all about. That's weird and confusing. So then after I backed out of that, I saw that I had gotten some personal challenges. I had received some. In fact, I've been getting them on my phone all day today. Like, evidently people have been sending me challenges. Right? So I'm like, oh, okay, great. So I have 4 challenges, solo challenges that I've been received. I go into every single one of them. I can't do any of them because they're all using cars that I don't have. 2 of them said you have to buy this from the PlayStation Store, so I hit the X button to go to the PlayStation Store just to see. Maybe because I bought it day one, they were going to give it to me for free, but I had to like go to the store to get it.
Mm-hmm.
The store wouldn't even boot up. It just was a blank screen.
It would have been free if that link worked.
So then if I back out of that, so now none of the challenges I can do. So then I go to see I go to like just the drive. Like, okay, well I'm just going to drive, right? And then I see there's the tour, but then there's a couple of new tours. I'm like, oh, let me click on the new tour. And I click on the new tour. It's like, oh, you have to download this from the PSN store. And then it went blank again.
Mm-hmm.
So then I backed out of that. I'm like, all right, well, I want to try this dynamic weather. So I'm going to go create, because I read that you can play with the dynamic weather by creating a custom race and then setting one of the settings to dynamic weather. So I do that, and I get in there, and I just pick the very first country, which is Canada, the very first race, and then I say, make the weather dynamic. I click the X button, boom, and the game crashes.
Crashes?
Crashes. Back to the PlayStation, the main screen of the PS4. Dude! What's going on?
Well, it was fixed, and everything was perfect, and then there was a whole bunch of Pete Dodds who were all over Twitter, and they were like, I mean, like the online stuff's been working for about 2 weeks now. But then
define working, because evidently I was in an online race and yet I was just sitting on a menu.
Well, what happened there was you were in Mr. Stewart's party, but he either didn't have a microphone on, or yeah, he probably didn't have a microphone on, or you didn't have a way of hearing him saying like, "I'm doing something else," like. Because you can join people's parties if they have it set so like friends can join. Like even if they're like, he may have just been doing single player races and you just joined his party, and obviously you can't join a single player race. And typically like when that's happened in the past, someone like I just hear in my ear like dude, you want to race online? And I'm like, no, I'm doing time trial, and they just leave. It's kind of a pain in the ass that you can, like people can just sort of join like that, but that's what happened there. As far as crashes, I've never had the game crash, but the online has been great in terms of like face-offs, in terms of playing online. Though playing the game online, I am not really a fan of. I'm not a fan of most video like racing games online unless you play with friends. Including Gran Turismo and Forza, so this isn't a Drive Club specific complaint, but like arcade racers, like really arcade racers, work best online, like Burnout. But when you get away from that, it doesn't really work. But everything was working fine, but now that the weather patch is out and all those pictures went up, people who hadn't played the game in forever, like you, got online, and then a lot of people went out and bought it, and now the servers are getting hammered again, and now so now they're going to have to figure that out, and then they're going to figure that out, and then they're going to release the PlayStation Plus version, and then the servers are going to get nailed like 15 times as hard.
There's no way they're releasing that PlayStation Plus version. Never going to happen.
I hope they don't, to be honest. I mean, I'm being selfish because I own the game, but like it seems like a lot of energy that's only going to ruin like performance of the game again, unless they release a PlayStation Plus version that doesn't interact with the main version. Like it has its own servers, and they create it just for them, and like those tracks or whatever.
You're dreaming. But, I know you're dreaming.
No, but I don't care if they do that because I already have it. Like I'm personally invested in what they do with the PlayStation Plus version.
I mean, you have to go out of your way to make me mad about a video game. They really went out of their way. I mean, I tried to do 6 different things and none of it worked tonight.
Right. None of it. Well, I haven't tried it tonight, but I had been reading on Twitter, not just you, but a lot of people that play it daily, and even on our forums, because like we have time trial competitions and stuff like that, and people were like, yeah, I can't sign in, I can't, like something happened today where people are having trouble again, and I'm assuming it's the weather patch came out yesterday and there was 10,000 pictures of it. So I don't know if it was new people or old people coming back or a combination of both. But
I was so excited to come on and gush with you about the weather for 20 minutes about this game, and now I'm complaining about it. Now I'm the angry, bitter gaming guy again that nobody likes.
It might be my game of the year.
The show is over.
It's so good.
No, it's not.
Yes,
if you can't play it, it's not good.
I have not been able to not play it in a very, very long time. I also just like, I mean, it depends how picky you are. Like when I sign, like if I signed on right now and I couldn't do challenges and whatnot, like I still have other things that I can do, so I just go do those.
Yeah, but the dynamic weather. Let's talk about the dynamic weather. People are freaking out about it. You're saying it's the greatest thing ever. Kotaku's saying it changes the game, makes it amazing. Mm-hmm. How do you even get dynamic weather? Like, is it only when you create a custom race and set it so if you're going to the tour, it's still the same tour that you were playing before?
I have not played the tour since it came out. I mean, it just came out yesterday, so like it's not a lot of time has gone by. I have no idea if it's in the tour or not. I'm gonna guess that it's not in the first tour, but like as you said, there's been additional tours, and there's another one that's coming out at the end of the month. I would assume that all future tours will have them.
Are those tours free, by the way?
No.
Oh my God! Are you kidding me?
Well, calm down for a second. I think that the way that they handled the online pass is actually rather brilliant. Every track, every sort of feature, everything that they add to the game, other than certain cars and these additional tours, are available for free. So you buy the base game, by the time the end of the season pass ends, which is July, they plan an update a month, you're going, like, we've already gotten 4 or 5 free tracks since the game came out. So it's not going to splinter the community in that way. Like where people are like, I want to race on this track, and it's like, oh well, I didn't download that pack, like, or like I didn't get the season pass, so I don't have that. Like the season pass is all of the sort of offline tours, but having the stuff available for either custom races, time trials, whatever, single player, or being able to play them online, they're available to everybody, which is cool. The game expands, and it doesn't section people off. I think that's a better way to handle it, personally.
I just want to play Drive Club. I want to see lightning.
Well, you picked the wrong night. I don't know what to tell you, Rich. I mean, I have been called a Drive Club apologist
by me,
and I wear that banner proudly. I think that it's a good game that has major problems, but none of those problems have stopped me from enjoying it. They really haven't. I'm not. I'm obviously, my outrage is fake, but my frustration is real, right? Absolutely. I mean, I was watching you and Chris Johnson on Twitter talking about trying to get into a group together and not being able to do it, and then you both crashed at the same time, or maybe it was you and someone else.
It was me and Seward.
Yeah, the game crashed at the same time, so that probably had something to do with the online server. I was reading that and I was like, that doesn't sound fun at all. But at the same time, I just got Dragon Age, so I'm like, I'm not even playing this game. Drive Club so yesterday.
All right, Far Cry 4.
Yes.
I've played quite a bit of it. How much have you played of it?
I have played probably 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
Maybe 6 or 7. I don't know. Time flies in Far Cry 4. Yeah. I've done an awful lot of co-op. Or not an awful lot, but I've used 3 or 4 of my keys.
Yeah, this is the first time that we've actually spoken, other than when I called you for 45 seconds earlier today saying, can we, is tonight going to work? Because our schedules have just been ridiculously off. I want to try co-op for Far Cry 4 with you, because I have not tried co-op. This is the most, I've never played a Far Cry game before this one. I'm very well aware of the quality of the games. I mean, people that I respect, like you and Mike Phillips and many others, have long lauded the series as very fun and innovative and a lot of things. So
I think that's actually in the back of the box. It says very fun, Pete Dodd and Mike Phillips.
I've gone. When I first started playing, I was like, wow, this is, I didn't like a few things, but overall I was like, yeah, this is great, this is great, this is great. Then it reached sort of a plateau, and then I was like, it's not, kind of losing its luster. Now I'm back to, oh, wait, no, this has been really fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I got over I have a feeling I'm going to have several of those peaks and valleys. I'm glad I got over that first valley because last night or the night before, whenever I had the chance to play it, I had a particularly fun mission that now has opened up a challenge for me. I'd like to talk about the game a little bit. I don't want to say spoilery, but I want to talk about a few things that have happened. I don't think they're going to be major spoilers.
Right.
I'm about 12 hours in, and my percentage is at 25%.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm at 14 or 16%. I personally am not worried about spoilers because, like, as far as the story goes, I don't give a crap about the story in any way, shape, or form thus far. But the warning's out there for people listening.
Right, exactly.
That we're going to potentially talk about the first quarter of the game.
Right. So here's some things I like. I like having to pick whether you align yourself with one person or the other, and the fact that making that choice will give you a sort of a different experience.
Right.
I like that. I think that's interesting. I love the copters, those copters that you get to fly around. Those things are great.
I wish you pedaled to make them go.
I wish that it gave you the ability to buy that thing and have it be at each of the places that you can fast travel to and trade.
Just have it airdropped to you.
Like
if you're out in the middle of nowhere, a plane just comes by and drops one for you.
Because for me, once I start flying around in those things, that's the only way that I want to travel around that world. And by the way,
the glider thing's fun too.
It is fun. It is fun. I like the glider.
But you have far less control. You
can only go down.
That you're going to go.
Yeah.
And that was in Far Cry 3 as well. So it's like for people who've played the Far Cry series, it's not as big of a thrill, I think, as the copter.
I reached my first sort of valley relatively recently, where I got to the point where the only missions I had available to me were missions that I don't know if you've gotten there yet, but basically AJ finds his parents' home, and there's a couple of guys that are like camping out there, and they give him a couple missions, and one of those missions brings you to a cave, and I literally can't figure out how to get to the yellow dot. Like, I've gone in there and I've swung around and I've gone below and I've gone above and I've flipped, and I can't get to the yellow dot. Like,
I'm laughing because I had the same problem in Far Cry 3 because it's so vertical that like the entrance can be anywhere.
Right.
And you're just swinging around and like all of a sudden you find like it's like, oh, it's just a shadow behind a rock. Isn't actually a shadow, it's a cave.
And like I'm on this dot. Hello, I need something to happen here, please.
Yeah.
So so that mission is still there, and then I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel like doing my third assassination or my third hostage rescue, and I've torn down a bunch of propaganda posters, and it's almost at that. It's like the game almost sensed it. It's like, all right, let's give you a new mission with one of the main protagonists, and it's like, oh, good. I opened it up, and then I went down there and I actually did another mission. So I still got those two guys at my parents' house. That mission I can't get past, but I've now since opened up a couple other missions, so that's good.
Have you done? Sorry to interrupt, but have you like paused to go do like crafting stuff?
Yeah.
So you can hold more weapons and all of that.
Well, that's another.
I find that fun. It's like,
yes,
I'm actually a hunter right now. Like, we're playing like that. Was it Cabela's games where you just like sit there and like a deer walks by and you're like, pow.
Yeah, and that's another thing where right now I've actually got an issue, right? Because my loot bag is full. Or like even when I go sell stuff, all it does is open up 2 or 3 things, and then it gets full. Like that, and I've increased it one time, but now I have to get like the skin of these fish, and I don't know where the heck to go get these demon fish. So I've gone to a few of the lakes and I've dove in, and there's no demon fish in there. So I'm
they're not on your map anywhere.
No, I've looked and looked and looked, and
how many towers have you opened up?
A bunch. Well, I mean, I don't know, a bunch, a decent amount. Like one of the things I like is is climbing up those towers and figuring out how to get from the bottom to the top, because they're all a little different. They're not a lot different, but they're all a little different. And sometimes
and each one gets progressively more difficult.
Right. And you always get to that, there's like 9 levels, and by level 4 or 5, you're like, you go around 3 or 4 times, and like, where is the stinking thing? And
well, that's the best thing to do in co-op. I play with our friend Darby, and when we play co-op, it's unlock towers and take out outposts, because the towers obviously are important. It's not necessarily fun in co-op, but I mean it's not fun. But but outposts with 2 players, especially when you get tigers and elephants and all of that involved, and the 2 of you are you're marking guys and you're trying to take them out. I mean it's fun solo, and bring a friend in. It's double.
And the last mission I did last night was really good. It was a mission, again, this is semi-spoilery, right? But it was a mission where I was given by, and I always forget the names, but she's one of the main protagonists. Her name starts with A. I chose to side with the woman instead of the dude, because, she's attractive.
Woman. No.
Right, yeah. So I sided with her. And
it's always the worst choice too. But
and
hashtag Gamergate.
And then her mission was to go find the woman at the arena. Have you opened the arena yet?
No.
Like, one of the many completely ridiculous things about the game, and I don't mean ridiculous bad, I just mean ridiculous, is like there's this arena where you go and you just mow down wave after wave of people with machine guns and stuff in front of a group of people, and the arena is like owned by this other woman who is desperately upset because Pagan Min is like torturing her family. And I'm like, yeah, but you own an arena where like thousands of people are getting slaughtered every day. But
well, that's the whole thing with video games, though, right? It's like you kill 1 trillion people, and then like all of a sudden a cutscene, 1 person dies, and it's like the end of the world.
Right.
And you're like, what about the 1 trillion people I killed already?
Yeah. So in that mission, she tells me to go to where one of the bad dudes that you meet early in the game, his sort of compound, and you have to take him out. You have to like sneak around. You can't be found. You got to take pictures of the different torture chambers. Like, it's a really well-built mission where you have to do a few different things, and you got to go vertical for a couple of them, and you got to sneak around, and you got to take a few dudes out, but then you got to hide the bodies, and then you got to go to the guy's office, and
what's that? Take dudes out.
Take dudes out. Exactly. And you gotta free a hostage, and then you put the bag over your head when he comes in, or he thinks you're the hostage. Then he takes it off, and you're like, "Ha ha, you son of a," And then anyway, it's a great mission, and it brought me back in. And once you complete that mission, those fortresses all over your map. Like, I've been looking at those fortresses, and I spent an hour one night trying to take out a fortress, and I just never had a chance.
Right.
And it kept saying, do campaign missions to make the fortresses weaker. I'm like, screw that. I'm Rich Grisham. I'm going to take out this fortress. I don't care. But anyway, after completing this mission, now it's like, this dude's fortress is weakened. Now's your chance. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to call my friend Pete Dodd, and I want to co-op and take this fortress out with him because it's weakened. So that's where I am right now. So
awesome.
Thoroughly enjoying Far Cry 4. Or thoroughly enjoying many aspects of Far Cry 4. Am bemused by a lot of things too. The world is beautiful, but it's also pretty empty and bleak. Like, it seems like every place I go, like every little spot that I unlock, every question mark I turn into a place, I get there and everyone's dead. It's just a dead body and blood. I'm like, there's no place where there's just like people happy anywhere in this whole country. I mean, it's a beautiful country, mountains and rivers and streams and stuff. So, but I mean, Far Cry 4 is a fantastic game, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I'm glad it was the game that I chose. We haven't
Mhm.
really had a chance to talk in almost a month, but I mean,
Right.
I wanted to get something from the AAA avalanche that has happened over the last 6 weeks. And I
Right.
wanted to get something that I could really sink my teeth into because I have a feeling I'm not going to be buying any more games for the next few months. I mean,
Hmm.
with the sports games and the leagues we got, I'm good there. I got a bunch of stuff I'm playing on my 3DS and my Vita. I'm getting my son Super Smash Brothers for the Wii U, and I'm getting him Little Big Planet for the PS4. So I got those. So I'm like, I just want one,
You
and
can send that to me.
it's a Christmas present. Um,
He doesn't need it, though, does he?
well, Daddy needs it. So
Oh,
I'm
God.
very
That's
glad
true, then.
that I chose Far Cry 4 to be that game, and I'm hoping that when we can play some co-op, I'll be even happier about that choice.
Yeah, yeah, I think you will. It's interesting to me, and I just want to make this point before I start to give you shit for being a total hypocrite.
Right.
It's interesting to me that like it's like a tale of two Ubisofts this year. You
Mm.
know, like Watch Dogs. Like I know there's a lot of people who like Watch Dogs, and if you like Watch Dogs, like I don't think less of you or whatever, but it was obviously a downgrade of what they showed previously. I mean, it sold really well, did really great, whatever, but like it was not the game that they made it out to be. Assassin's Creed Unity was so bad that they canceled the season pass and let people who had the season pass get a full $60 game, which could have been Far Cry 4 or The Crew. The Crew was so awful that it actually debuted lower in the UK. Or actually, I don't know. I saw it today. I think it was the UK. It might have been all of Europe. Either way, doesn't particularly matter. It debuted lower. The Crew debuted lower than Drive Club was like in like week 8. So the Crew is a mess. I mean, I've been saying the Crew is a mess forever. Like because I was in the alpha and the beta and the second beta and I hated it. So I'm like, it's one of the few games that I'm glad didn't succeed because it could have really changed what racing games are if it did succeed, and I don't want racing games to change in that direction. So it's one of the few times that I'm happy about a game not succeeding. So you have all of that, and it's like, oh man, Ubisoft's just been awful. But then they had, Valiant Hearts, they had Child of Light, they have Far Cry 4.
Valiant Hearts, so good.
Like it's just, they're like, I mean, they're actually probably literally like 8 companies at once. They have so many different development studios that it's like, oh, I hate Ubisoft, except for Far Cry 4 is gonna be in my Game of the Year list.
Except for my 2 favorite games. They're terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're a very strange company in that way.
Yeah.
It's like oh, they care about his money, but I don't like. I just just got Rayman Legends again because it was on sale. Got it on the PlayStation 4 and playing it in 1080p, just like on a computer monitor with the colors just pop, and it's like, man, this game is good. Like, how is this the same company that made Assassin's Creed that like people are just falling through the floor and there's that face that's just like, it's like, but it's different development houses within the same publisher.
Sure.
It's weird. So, Mr. Grisham.
Yeah.
You hate violence in video games, like extreme, like ultra violence, especially, like needless, just like pointless. We're just going to be disgusting.
Yeah, I do.
What happens at the beginning of Far Cry 4?
The most horrifying thing, the trailer that I railed against. I hate it. I still hate it. I hate the opening of the game, and I hate the second cutscene of the game. I hate them. Absolutely hate them.
Okay.
I had to tell myself, you got to get over this. You have to get over it. And it's not like I hate it. I'm like, oh, stop it. I'm just like, I just hate that that's what we have to do. You know what I mean? Like, I just, to me, it feels like they could have gotten all of that point across about the guy without it being so obvious. Like,
I will agree with that, and I hate that you're doing this to me because I don't want to agree with you currently. I want to rail on you, but I will agree with you on that. Like, video games are very ham-fisted in like we're gonna make the bad guy really bad.
And let me give you an example. I just, because I'll forget about it. One of my favorite freak out moments ever in a video game was in Heavy Rain when, spoiler, when the guy had to make the decision to cut off his thumb.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Mm-hmm. It was amazing. It was intense. It was gross. And when he actually had to do it, the camera cut away.
Right.
And
which makes it worse in a way.
Yes.
because then your imagination takes over, and you may be more fucked up than that director is.
Ding, ding, ding. And it's a page right out of, what is it, Reservoir Dogs? When the dude cuts the ear up.
Or Jaws. Again, I mean, like, Jaws was all about, like, the scariness of the shark. It was never about the shark chomping. It wasn't like teeth going into skin.
Right.
It was like blood coming up in the water, and then you were like, whoa, shit, what happened down there? And then you start imagining it, and it was like, I'm never going swimming in the ocean again. So
anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to make sure I said that. So.
Well, I cut you off with my own Jaws story, so. I had a friend growing up who was obsessed with Jaws, so I can't, like... get into my head. I just have to repeat everything he says. But it's not only that. I mean, like, the game is like you're just sort of running around and like just killing and shooting, and there's a lot of things like I really like the whole hunting and crafting aspect of, I think that's a better way of unlocking things than, I don't know, leveling up or whatever. Like, I like it makes sense. It's like, all right, if I kill, if I get like 3 pieces of leather from this thing, I can then build a holster or whatever. That makes sense, like, in a really basic way, I guess.
I mean, for me, there's a couple of things. Number one, it's the only game like it that I'm playing, and it's really the only game that I played, like, maybe this and Enemy Fronts are the only violent games that I really have even played this year. So, and after an hour and a half, I gotta then cleanse my palate and go play a game of baseball or basketball. Like that's the thing. But it's also like, unlike Grand Theft Auto 5, which if this were 5 years ago, I would have bought day one and been playing it. It just doesn't feel cynical and nasty and grimy. Like, I don't just walk into somebody's shop and shoot him in the face with a shotgun. Like, I probably can if I want to, but, and I'm going to sound like whatever, but, I mean, I'm hunting animals when I have to so that I can make a thing that I need in the game. Or I'm taking out outposts and I'm killing the enemies, and I'm now able to, help the good guys get forward. And I'm not just walking around randomly slaughtering people, for no reason. So it doesn't feel as nasty or cynical as a Grand Theft Auto, and because it's not just a linear shooter, it doesn't feel like a Call of Duty campaign. So that's how I'm justifying it in my head.
Well, that's what I was the next question was going to be, but you didn't get far enough, was going to be like, why is this fun to you where you were bored stiff of Destiny? But what you played of Destiny was basically the tutorial area, which is you walking straight through a thing, where after that the game, like, opens up and you can go do stuff wherever.
Well, I also don't want to play online. right?
Right.
And I don't mean co-op, I mean online. And Destiny is a
Mhm.
big online shooter that you play with your friends, and that's,
Right. But
you know,
that wasn't your complaint though when you were playing it. Your complaint was that you were bored.
that's correct. But I also know, like, I know personally that I don't want to play an online PvP shooter. I've
Right.
played them for years, and at a certain time in my life, that was what I liked to
Well, it's
do.
not just PvP. I mean, actually, I rarely PvP. But anyway, go on.
Well, no, I'm just, I know what I like right now, and what I
Mhm.
like right now is not the experience that Destiny gives me, but I am enjoying the experience that Far Cry 4 gives me.
Have you tried the PvP in Far Cry 4?
Nope, I have done exactly zero online, either co-op or PvP. I, in fact, refuse to create a Uplay account. Just hit that stupid skip every time because I want to get and I want to play the game. So
Yeah. You actually, I think you can get a mission or something from that though. But
probably can, and I might do it.
they always give you a reason to. But it's not like there isn't enough fucking missions in the game.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean, like Ubisoft's always like that. It's like there's 3 more missions for Watch Dogs, which has 270 missions. No, I really need 273. Like
yeah.
270 is not enough. Yeah. I don't know. I was prepared to rip you apart, and there's a lot of people on the Dodd Scientifics forums right now that are probably disappointed in me. But you've justified yourself pretty well, I think. It is definitely a far more violent game than you typically would endorse.
It is. It is. And I don't.
I've always known that about. Like, I think that's something that maybe hasn't come across. Like, you aren't, like, to me, I never felt like you aren't into violence because you're like, oh, that's gross, oh, that's too far, oh, that's, this is making my soul impure or something. It's just sort of like, I'm over that. Like, can we do something more? Like,
and it really started when I started introducing my son to video games. Was I personally discovered all of these fun games that weren't just Castle Wolfenstein and Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, right?
Right.
That's really the genesis of this, because before my son was born, all I played was sports games and shooters.
Mm-hmm.
But when my son was born and I really started like and we talked about this, I started getting into some Nintendo games and things like that. I'm like, oh man, these are bright, but they're bright and fun, but they're still really good. And it feels like, we don't explore other things, and we always go right to the, Drawn to Death and Bloodborne and Death by Killing and
Drawn to Death was such a letdown, by the way. As an ender, like, Jaffe's making a game and like for the PS4, and maybe I'll enjoy it, maybe I wouldn't, but like having that be the like, and here's the final thing was kind of like, there's about 40 games I'd put ahead of that on my list that you just showed. So I don't know why it wasn't in the middle, but anyway, sorry,
No, nothing to apologize. I mean, I'm glad that I'm having fun with Far Cry. I was a little worried that I wouldn't, but I am, and I'm gonna keep playing this game. Like, I'm excited to try the co-op. I think that will be really fun, because what would be more fun right now than playing solo Far Cry 4 campaign would be you and me talking over Skype and taking out a fortress. To me, sounds spectacular.
Which, by the way, we don't even need Skype anymore. I mean, like, I've given Sony a bunch of shit for their operating system being sort of subpar, but the 2.0 update made the audio codec in party chat really good. Like, really, really good. Like, I've avoided talking over anything, like Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PS3, 360. I always use Skype because it was better. And now, like, most recently, like, since 2.0, I just I'm like, let's just talk on party chat. It's clear, it's part of the system, and whatever. So yeah, that's another side thing. But I'm actually surprised with how clear it is.
I'll have to check that out. All right, a couple quickies before we go. Two questions from the Dodd Scientifics forums. Still my favorite place to go just read about people talking about games. This one from Alex840 says, question for the Doddcast. Assuming Uncharted 4 is the last Uncharted that Naughty Dog make, do you think Sony will allow the series to carry on and give it to another studio like they've done with Little Big Planet, or just bank on the fact that Naughty Dog will give them a new iconic character with their next IP as they have done with all their previous games?
If I was them, I would give it to another studio. I mean, and they've already given it to another studio with
Golden Abyss, right?
Yeah, which was quite good. It took a while to get going, but I really enjoyed that game quite a bit.
I've played 3 of the 4 Uncharted games to completion, and Golden Abyss is one of those 3.
Right. I mean, it was a really good game. I mean, some of the dialogue, some of the banter, you could tell it wasn't like Naughty Dog quality, but like the actual gameplay and all of that stuff was fantastic.
And it was on a handheld.
Yeah, exactly. It was on a handheld, and it looked amazing. And it was like you're looking at like, a waterfall coming down the side of this mountain and rocks jetting out, and you're like, this is on a freaking handheld. That's not even it's not even a PlayStation 3. It's like a PlayStation 2.5.
Yep.
So, yeah. So obviously they don't have any problem with giving the title to another developer. And if Naughty Dog is stopping with 4, which they've never said that they were, but if they are and then they're moving on to something else, I would assume, that someone else would pick it up, and the games will be slightly less good, but they'll still be fantastic, and then you'll also have Naughty Dog games on top of it, like whatever their new IP is, and The Last of Us, to like. That makes the most sense to me when it comes to if Sony wants to make money. Like you don't drop Uncharted yet. It's not a franchise that's really on the decline. Like Uncharted 3, I know a lot of people didn't like, but it sold really well, and I think Uncharted 4 is going to be a massive hit. So why would you just stop there if you're in the business of making money?
I mean, to me, Uncharted is like James Bond, right? Like there's no real reason you couldn't have Uncharted be a thing, even if Nathan Drake isn't necessarily the protagonist. There's a lot of directions you could go that would still
and do something else,
or even not kill him off. Just have some other character, and maybe Nathan Drake plays a different role in the game. I mean.
Or do a Tomb Raider and just reboot the series. It's just like, here's Uncharted.
Right.
And it's like, and the character looks kind of different, but, and it's just like,
yeah,
we're just going to do this again. But
there you go. Last one for the night. This one from Jave, and I know it's Jave because he actually told us how to pronounce his name. So thank you, Jave.
Nice.
He says, one thing that fascinates me are games that end up being rediscovered and gain a strong following after spending years either in obscurity or having been regarded as a failure, the Pinkertons of the gaming world, if you will. What are some recent or current failed or obscure titles that you think will one day be rediscovered and reevaluated? I've said numerous times that my favorite game of the last generation is Apuna for the Wii, and I truly believe that in time this game will fall into the right hands and people will realize that it's actually a forgotten classic. There's also a brilliant little puzzle game for the Super Famicom called Piquinya that I wish people would come around on, but I don't have high hopes for that one. Well, I'm gonna go sports game on you real quick.
Okay.
The Bigs.
Yeah.
Spectacularly fun game, both single player and multiplayer. Not only is the arcade sports genre dead, but
Mhm.
a reimagined next-gen version of the bigs, perhaps cheap and I don't want to say stripped down, but focused
Right. Right. Yeah.
with accessibility, but the power-ups and the beautiful graphics and the real players in real stadiums. I mean, to me, there's not a person I've ever talked to that played the bigs that didn't really like it or love it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is a idea, and to me that's what I think of right away is the bigs. That was awesome.
I'm gonna go with in this current generation. Just off like this just popped into my head, which is I really enjoyed Knack and I really enjoyed Rise. One being the PlayStation 4 exclusive, one being an Xbox One exclusive. I really enjoyed both of those games, despite the fact that they both got totally panned by the press and mostly panned by social media. Social media including message boards. It's the last time I'm going to say that. In the future, when I say social media, I mean NeoGAF and fucking GameFAQs and all that too. Reddit. I think that both of those games were a lot better than people gave them credit for, and I think that at some point, people are going to go back and they're going to play them, and you're going to see, like on GAF thread pop up, like late to the party, Knack, and like in 3 years, and like I'm playing this for the first time. This game's really fun, and it does this, and it does this, and it does this, and then there's going to be like 5 people like me, but not me, because I have a lifetime ban, that are going to be like, yeah, it was fucking awesome, and then there's going to be all these other people that are like, really? It did that? And then, people will start buying it or, whatever. Like, it will be like $3 on a sale at that point, and then it's going to be like, there's going to be a lot more people that have positive things to say about Knack or Rise. I mean, people are like, oh, Rise, it just looks good and it's so shallow. I didn't think that Rise was shallow at all. Like, I thought that the combat was, I mean, it wasn't the deepest combat ever, but it wasn't nearly as shallow as people made it out to be. And it's another game that just, like, it had all these really amazing moments that I think if people go back to it in a couple of years, they're going to be like, wow, this is actually way better than I ever, thought it was.
Well, I think, Mr. Dodd, that is a show. It was great to get back together with you. It's been too long.
It has.
And we could have gone on for another hour or two
right.
with topics and questions, but we'll have to save that for another day.
Destiny expansion. I got Dragon Age. Got all sorts of stuff. So we should do this soon.
Again. I agree.
If our schedules can match up.
Well, yeah, we'll make it happen. I mean, the nice thing is after this week, I don't think I'll be doing any traveling for the next few weeks. The holidays are coming. We'll have to have our annual, Christmas debate, which is, a long, long beloved tradition. So we should be able to get back on a regular schedule starting now. And the nice thing is people really like it when we get to talk to each other and then put it out as a podcast. Yeah. So many nice people reach out to me and said, hey, man, when's the next Doddcast?
I know, yeah, me too. And I've felt bad about it because, like, we've done a bunch of Press Row / Doddcasts, but we end up talking so much about sports that I haven't put them out.
Yep.
Like, I wanted to explain this to people where they're like, how come you haven't put anything out? Like, I kind of feel like if you are into this show and you're into sports, you listen to Press Row already. So if you don't, and then you're wondering where the Doddcasts are, head over to Press Row, and you'll probably find a bunch of hangouts that I'm on, and we're talking about sports mostly, but we, like with Brian, we talked quite a bit about Sunset Overdrive and whatnot, which he loved.
Yes, he did.
That's why there hasn't been a Doddcast in a while. We actually have been doing things. It just, I didn't think it fit as a Doddcast personally.
Yep. No, it makes sense. But we're back. So here we are. And thank you, everybody, for listening and for watching. We appreciate it. And best thing about the holidays, well, not necessarily the best thing, but one of the great things about the holidays is I get a little more free time, get to play some more games, and just makes our conversations that much better. So
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to all of those things. So, Mr. Dodd, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's go play some Far Cry. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, cool. Well, all right, everybody, have a great night. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Bye.